This week on the Brody and Mo In-Law Show.
Are we just not yelling enough?
I think we're not yelling enough because in sports you have to scream at each other because of reasons.
Yeah.
The New England Patriots were bad for a very, very long time. They were like the Arizona Cardinals of the East Coast.
Will there ever be people at live sporting events again?
Do you happen to let him pee in the rocks at home?
Welcome to the Brody and Mo In-Law Show, where we commiserate about Arizona sports, collaborate on being dads to daughters, and conversate on the pressing matters of today. Brody, since there's no news happening in America or across the globe right now, which is pretty sweet, just like a real normal, run-of-the-mill week. Nothing really going on.
Twitter's been pretty boring.
Dead. Nothing really happening at all. I want to talk to you. I want to announce something that I feel a little bit of hesitation because I'm not sure that you're gonna be okay with it.
Are you breaking up with me?
I am. I might have broken up with beer for a little bit.
Oh, really?
So I found myself a new vice here, and I'm scared to even show it to you. It's a hard seltzer.
Oh, you're going hard seltzer.
Have you tried
I don't know
this
if I can do that.
Brody?
I don't know if I can. I don't like seltzer water.
See,
So I
you've
don't
got to
think I could
start there. When Emily was pregnant, she used to drink a lot of.
She drank a lot of hard seltzer when she was pregnant.
She drank a ton of hard seltzer when she was pregnant, and we just kept going with it. It worked so well.
Okay. Oh, wow.
No, she used to drink a ton of soda, but when she got pregnant, obviously she couldn't keep going with that. So we tried to find things to substitute for soda, and the thing that ended up sticking was bubbly water.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've still been a big fan of bubbly water ever since, but then they've come out with this new hard seltzer, which, like, if something's good, what do you do to improve it? You add bacon or you add alcohol.
That's the two things you have to. It never makes things worse. Let's just put it that way.
No, so I really feel like I've arrived, you know? I've gotten to a new plane with this.
That's the threshold is of arriving. Well, Mo, how do you describe if you've made it as a podcast?
How do you describe when you've made it? Well, how do you know when you've arrived?
What is your definition of we've made it as a podcast? We've made it.
I mean, we have 12 subscribers. I feel like that's pretty good.
Double digits is higher than most people can count in my family. So, 1 out of the 3 in my family can't count to 10. So, that's got to be something. But I view make it as a podcast is when you get your first celebrity guest appearance, which we have today. Celebrity is like not even the right word. What's bigger than a celebrity? I don't know. Phil is bigger than a celebrity. We have a sports fan. We have a father. We have a person who is up to date on the issues of the day. Phil Bashaw is with us. Phil, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, Brody, thank you for that introduction, man. I am I am excited to be here, and celebrity is definitely the wrong word. I am not that at all.
Mythical creature. All of the above. Thanks for coming, man. We appreciate it. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Thank you, Phil. How do you know Brody?
So I actually work with Brody's wife over at Farm Bureau. So I met Brody through Chelsea, and we've become really good friends, bonded over pellet smoker grills, hockey,
that's right,
sports, golf, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brody's going to be modest, but he's a much better golfer than I am.
That's not true.
I've seen Brody golf, and I'd love to start off this podcast with you on a foundation of like honesty and trust, and I'm no longer sure I can do that.
That's not an indication of Brody's golf game. That's an indication of my golf game.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I am one of the worst golfers on the planet.
Phil, you taught me something though in the sport of golf that I will forever cherish and that I'm going to use in my golf game from now on until I stop golfing, and that is when you've had such a bad hole, you just draw a poop emoji on your scorecard. Because I've done that so many times where it's like I've lost count of how many strokes I am on this poop emoji it is. So you count up how many you have.
Yeah, listen, it's smiley face, frowny face, or poop emoji. That's how I score golf. That's. I thought you were going to say the arm wedge because that's one of my favorites too.
Oh, the arm wedge.
Yeah, the good old arm wedge. You get it.
Explain the arm wedge.
Well, you get it into a somewhat unplayable situation, and you just grab it and you give it a quick toss back into the fairway.
It's like the presidential forgiveness.
The arm wedge is actually my favorite club to use out of a sand trap, right?
It goes farther than my sand wedge.
Just give it a quick toss. I can get it within 10 feet of the hole with the arm wedge pretty consistently. So,
oh man, I'm loving
Phil,
it.
I understand that beyond golf, that you've got a particular penchant for NFL football, in particular that dynasty team to the east that we try not to talk about here in the West Coast, Best Coast. Can we count Arizona as the West Coast? Most likely not.
We're not really a coast, so.
And we're also not the best, so neither of those terms really applied. But Phil, you're a pretty staunch New England Patriots fan, right?
Yeah. So I was actually born just north of Boston and lived there until I was about 9 or 10 years old, and moved out to Arizona and been living here ever since. But when you grow up in New England, New England sports just kind of sticks with you. The New England Patriots were bad for a very, very long time. I mean, not a whole lot of people remember this, but between 1960 and 2000, they were like the Arizona Cardinals of the East Coast. They were a terrible, terrible team. Sort of when I got into my formative years and really started paying attention to sports, that's when they were really blowing up, in the early 2000s and that kind of stuff.
So you're the reason for Tom Brady's success. We can pinpoint it back to you then.
Sure, if you want to.
All those rings. I don't see one with Phil. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm having them resized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right, good.
Yeah.
It's a good point though. Like, you're not a fair weather fan. Like, you have a reason for being a fan of the Patriots. You didn't just become a fan when they were good, which I think some people do.
One of the things that I think makes being a fan so much fun is that you get to be a fan with other like-minded people, right? And so when I was growing up, my family were all New England Patriots fans. They're all Red Sox fans, Bruins fans. And so you sort of grow up wanting to emulate your uncles and other family members. And then when you get a little bit older, you can talk sports with them. You can talk about what's going on with your team, what's happening this year, how are they going to do in the playoffs, or what's coming up this week. You get to text back and forth with them on game day and that kind of stuff. It's the camaraderie of being a fan. And so, I think that influences a lot of at least why I enjoy watching the Patriots so much, is because I have family members that are into it with me and that kind of stuff. So
that makes sense. And that, I think a lot of people in Arizona, I don't know if it's because we have so many transplants or our sports teams are relatively new in comparison to all the teams you just listed that have been in the league for, the Red Sox have been in the league forever. So, and then the Diamondbacks, they've been in the league since 98. You don't have as many just true fans. They only cheer when that team's doing really good. Like Cardinals, for example, you seem like you have so many more fans that cheer for the Cardinals when they're winning. The Coyotes are definite, on that. People only cheer for the Coyotes when they're winning or something like that. So it's kind of interesting from the East Coast where it's this is in my DNA that I'm going to cheer for the Patriots no matter what.
I do want to ask, Phil, I want to ask you this. Tom Brady's gone. Gronkowski's gone. You still have Bill Belichick, and you've got a completely untested new quarterback in Jarrett Stidham. What are your expectations and what are your hopes for the Patriots this season?
I mean, as a Patriots fan, we expect to go to the Super Bowl every year. So, I think I'm going into the season with that expectation. But in all seriousness, it's sort of a weird situation, right? I mean, you gotta trust that Bill Belichick knows what he's doing. And he's proved over and over and over again that he could take a roster that is really unimpressive on paper at the beginning of the season and turn it into a really good team. I would expect that team to be 8 wins minimum. They still have a chance. I mean, you still got Bill Belichick, you still got Julian Edelman on that team, and they lost a bunch of key pieces on the defense, but you have to remember they had a lot of really good young players on that defense last year, and that really is what kept them in a lot of games. Our offense was really terrible last year. And so it was the defense that kept us in a lot of those games and even had us in contention for the playoffs. And so, I think there are a lot of really good pieces there. And they've really seemed to put their confidence in Jarrett Stidham. So let's see what he can do. So I'm the eternal optimist. It's every year is the year that the Wildcats are going to take the Rose Bowl. So
boy, I was with you on the Patriots. I don't know if I'm with you on that one anymore. I've lost all hope.
When it comes to like the Wildcats football, it's I start out the season, all right, this is the year we're going to win the Rose Bowl until it's not, and so I have a really good 2, maybe 3 weeks into the college football season, and then I basically wait until we play ASU. So that's the fate of an Arizona Wildcats fan, I guess, when you're talking
That's the
football.
beauty then of turning around and being a Patriots fan too, though, at least for the past decade, is that your college sports team is terrible. Saturdays are bad, but Sunday's coming. So, I don't see any reason. I think I'm with you in having optimism for that team because for whatever reason, I watched a lot of Jarrett Stidham play when he was in college. And Stidham was good at Baylor. He ran spread offense concepts like every college football team does, and then went to Auburn and had 2 solid years at Auburn. It seemed like the Auburn offense, not that it was intentionally mirroring the New England offense, it seems to me like the offensive concept at New England is a lot of run routes between the numbers. Brady was never really a down the field kind of guy. When he had Randy Moss, he was obviously because he had that threat. But Gronk, Edelman, Wes Welker, Amendola, they're all guys who kind of line up in the slot, run between the numbers, and it's all about routes and concepts and getting that guy open. And so if Stidham doesn't have to be a superhero, he's just got to know the routes and he's got to trust his guys to get open. And Belichick seems to know exactly how to draw that up. So they play in a weaker division. I don't believe in Buffalo. I don't believe in Josh Allen. Tua's a rookie. We have no idea what he's going to do. The Jets are the Jets. I don't see any reason not to be optimistic about that team right now. 8 wins seems like the floor.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't think anybody will argue with the weakness of that division. I mean, it's a pretty weak division that they play in. But one of the things I will say is I think Jarrett Stidham has got a lot more mobility than Tom Brady has. Tom Brady's never been a real mobile quarterback. He always really relied on his knowledge of the game and being able to read what defenses were doing and knowing exactly where that ball needed to go, exactly when it needed to be there. I think you're going to see a little bit different team come out because they've got a quarterback that's got a little bit more mobility and maybe not the same type of knowledge of the game or understanding of the game. But you still have that knowledge on the sidelines. And so they're going to be he's going to be relying a lot more on Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniel to run that offense where, for a large part, Tom Brady got to the line and basically, dictated what was going to happen with that ball. So one of the things I think will help them be successful is that team comes out as a different team every week. Mm-hmm. I mean, they go from a passing team to a power running team the next week, and they'll go from one week to the next. That's why they're so frustrating to have any Patriots players in your fantasy football league, right? Because you never know who's getting the call 1 week to the next. Yeah. I think they're still going to keep up with that trend. They're still going to play each team every week. And, I think we're going to see a little bit different team. But yeah, I think you're right. I think 8 wins for that team is the floor, based upon where they play in their schedule this next year. And we'll see what Stidham's got. I mean, we'll see what he can do.
have a daughter, correct, Phil?
I do. Yeah, my daughter Allison is 8.
She's 8 years old. Our daughters are a little bit younger, so we're not quite to your level of expertise of fatherhood yet. But the New England Patriots underwent a massive change this offseason. How did you explain the leaving of Tom Brady to Tampa Bay to your daughter? How did that happen?
I have to tell you that just like any father of who's a true sports fan, basically you're going to teach your kids to root for your team as soon as they can talk, right?
Right.
And so the first phrase that I taught both my kids, I have a 6-year-old son as well. The first thing I taught them to say when I prompted them was that Tom Brady was their favorite football player. And so on game day, I'd go, "Who's your favorite football player?" And both of them would go, "Tom Brady." And yeah, right. We did the Rob Gronkowski thing for a while too, and that worked out pretty well. My son, called them Tom Brodnowski for a long time, sort of combined the two. But as you can imagine, like, game day in our house was all about the New England Patriots, right? And so my kids have grown up, and for their entire lives, Tom Brady has been their favorite football player.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what they tell daddy, and I'm fine with it. So I go through this spell where Tom Brady decides that he's leaving, right? And this was a big crushing blow for me and a huge surprise. To basically me and Patriots fans alone. Everybody else knew months ago that this was happening. And then, and so I'm sort of getting over that, and I feel comfortable enough where I can explain it to my kids that Tom Brady is no longer a New England Patriot. And then I get the news that Rob Gronkowski is coming out of retirement to play with the Buccaneers. Right. And they're down there together. Right. And
so stab in the back.
Exactly. So my kids have a lot of questions, right? They're like, is Tom Brady still our favorite football player? And I'm like, well, no, we still like Tom Brady, but he plays for another team now. So we still root for the Patriots. And they're like, so we root for the Patriots, not Tom Brady. Well, yes. So who do we root for on the Patriots now? And I don't have a great answer at this moment. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, maybe.
He's our guy now.
Julian Edelman. Yeah, we can get excited about Julian Edelman, right? So my kids are still they're still questioning all of this, right? And they're like, so do we dislike Tom Brady? And I was like, no, we still like Tom Brady. We have a lot of respect for Tom Brady. He just went to a different team now, and when we speak about it publicly, we wish him well. Inside, we hope he's miserable because we are, and that's how we cope with this, kids.
It's got to be hard for them to understand. They don't understand that sports is a business, like that. These players are making their livelihood playing the sport for our entertainment to be able to talk about, and like these kids are just like, hey, my dad told me I like Tom Brady, so I like Tom Brady. Until they guess get old enough to be able to figure out like why I like Tom Brady. It's like, I don't know. My dad likes, my dad likes the Coyotes for us. So Sadie likes the Coyotes. When she can stand still for longer than 4 seconds, she roots for the Coyotes.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of an interesting thing, right? It's like you have to, you're sort of instilling in your kids like loyalty to team, not necessarily loyalty to player. Right.
Right.
And hey, we're gonna ride or die with this team, right? And whether they're good or bad, this is who we root for,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an interesting lesson. And my daughter, who's 8 years old, was very inquisitive about it. She was like,
Really?
she really wanted to understand why, what was going on and why all of a sudden we're not rooting for Tom Brady anymore. She's like, I got a Tom Brady jersey. And I'm like, yeah, well, he's wearing different colors now. So.
So what are you going to do with the jersey? Did she have any suggestions for what you could do with the jersey?
Oh, it's like what do you call it now? It's a vintage jersey. It's throwback. It's whatever, right? It's like,
Remember when that guy used to be our quarterback and he won us a bunch of games? That was nice.
Yeah. Remember when we were really good and that guy was our hero? Yeah. We miss those days.
Did you feel yourself resenting Brady for having not that he was the catalyst for leaving New England. It didn't seem like he had much of a choice in the matter. But do you harbor any resentment towards him going to Tampa Bay? And if so, how are your kids handling that too?
It's sort of funny you asked that, because that was something that I sort of struggled with, right? I wanted to be mad at Tom Brady for leaving, and I wanted to be mad at Gronkowski for going to Tampa Bay instead of coming back to New England, right? And I think the reason I wanted to be mad is because the New England Patriots are my team, and I'm going to keep rooting for that team, whoever the players are that are out there, right? I'm a New England Patriots fan, no matter who's under center. And so it was sort of hard to see a player that you had invested so much time in rooting for and everything else go somewhere else, right? But then you sort of have to sit back and think about, like this, to them, this is a business. These guys are athletes. They're, and we've set up these, immense incentives for them to get the contracts that they need to get, and this is a big money business for them. And so you can't really be mad at them for, doing what's best for them and responding to the incentives that they have. I mean, as Arizona fans, could you be mad at Larry Fitzgerald for going somewhere else?
Man, when Tom Brady left to Tampa Bay, that was like probably not the first thought I thought, but it was up there with how would I feel if Larry left? And I think a lot of Arizona fans had to have thought that. I mean, I'm going to defer to my counterpart here. Mo, what do you think on this first?
I think it's all about in the way that you leave. The prime example of this is LeBron leaving Cleveland.
The first
The
time?
first time. And that's a good point too, is he's done it twice. First time he was hated. He became public enemy number one. Second time he left, it seemed like Cleveland said, okay, you came back, you've stuck with us for a while, you brought us a championship, you're our hometown kid, go do whatever you need to do. Brady's kind of in the same scenario. He's been in New England for 600 years, brought him 332 championships. There's not going to be, I don't think, that level of resentment to watch him go, regardless of whose choice it was. The same with Larry Fitzgerald. I wouldn't be mad if he left. If he leaves in his prime, if he leaves 5 years into his contract and he goes somewhere else and wins a bunch of championships with another team, I don't know how I feel about that. He leaves right now, you feel okay about it because he's given everything he's had to this franchise for forever. And you want to see the guy succeed because you're invested in him and you've wanted to see him do something good. And if he can't do it here, let him go somewhere else. But you don't know that about a player if they leave early. So would I be mad at Larry Fitzgerald now? No, definitely not. Would I have been mad had he left 6 years ago? Would I be mad if it wasn't his choice and he made a huge production out of it? Maybe.
So I agree and yet disagree all in the same breath with you, because as an Arizona sports fan, I think the world of Larry Fitzgerald as a person, as a player. He's a future Hall of Famer. I don't think there's anybody that would dispute that. Great person and has done so much for the Valley, maybe more than any other sports person ever who's ever done. And I want nothing more than to see him win a championship. I want him to win one in Arizona above all, but I want him to win a Super Bowl. That's the only thing the only check mark on his box that he has not checked, I think. He can overpass Jerry Rice in a few records, but other than that, really winning the big one is the key marquee for him. I think I would be a little upset if he left this year, because the Cardinals haven't been this good and had a chance to win this year than they've had in a long time. I think if he would have left 3 years ago, I probably am not that mad, because that team, well, let's go 2 years ago, was bad, really bad. And so if he would have been like, dude, I got to go to New England and I'm going to go win a championship, or I'm going to go here and try and play for the playoffs, I probably would have been like, dude, no, but also yes, all in the same breath. This year's Cardinals team has actually got some weapons that they can actually have a chance at going to the next level. Are they a Super Bowl team? I don't know. But they actually have a chance this year. And it seems like it's been forever since they've even had a chance. So I would be a little disappointed if he left this year. If he went to Kansas City or Kansas City or
Green Bay, man. I want to see him with Aaron
Green Bay
Rodgers.
or if he went to even Tampa now, like if he went to one of those teams, I would be like, okay, you're trying to win a championship. You don't have too many more years left in them legs. Okay, I can get on board with that. But I don't think he's had a team like this in a while. With Hopkins and obviously Kyler Murray, who's even in the MVP talks now. With that high potent of an offense, he hasn't had in a while.
So your take is that you would be more upset with him leaving later in his career than earlier, just because of the team around him.
Just because of now. Just because of who he has around him now. I just think back to 2 years ago when they were so bad. When they were so bad 2 years ago, if he would have been like, guys, I'm 200 years old. I need to go win a championship. It's not going to happen here. I would have been like, oh, okay. All right, go win. You need to win. Now, though, in his career, at least he's got a chance. Now, if this year they go 3-13 and the whole thing blows up and he's like, guys, I got to go somewhere else, I'm game. I don't think it's the age thing. It's just the weapons that he has around him puts him in a better chance now than before.
How about we spin it this way then? Because I get where you're going, I think. Bring it to a different sport and keep going along those lines of it. It matters more about not only the team around him, but his chances of taking that team to the next level. Let's say that 3 years ago, Paul Goldschmidt wanted to be traded from the Diamondbacks, that he asked to leave that team. When you've got Zach Greinke, Robbie Ray, you got JD Martinez backing him up, but he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're not getting past LA. LA's winning that division. You're not going to the World Series. Are you mad at Paul Goldschmidt in that scenario for wanting to leave? Because he knows he's not going to win with Arizona, but the team around him is good. Because I'm mad at him in that situation. But from what you're saying, you are not.
I think I would be disappointed, but if he left again under the right circumstances, like you said, I think I've got to understand it because that team's not beating LA.
Well, can you be mad about where they go as well? I mean,
definitely.
You mentioned the Packers, right? And my wife is a huge Green Bay Packers fan. Her entire family is, and so I can tell you that when Brett Favre made the big production about leaving Green Bay and went to the Jets, they were a little sad, and it's okay, but Brett's moving on. It's fine. But I'll tell you, when he went to the Vikings, it was over. There was not a Brett Favre fan left in that family. So, I mean, I think it matters not only how you go, but where you go as well. I mean,
yeah.
If Brady had gone to a division rival, I'd have a whole different feeling about this.
So the answer is, if I'm hearing this correctly, is it's complicated.
Yeah, that's complicated. I don't know how it would feel. I don't know how
I have a problem with that because I do listen to other sports radio podcasts and talk shows. Stephen A. Smith has never had a nuanced answer for anything. Will Cain has never had a complicated answer. Sports are black and white. If sports radio has taught me anything, there is a right answer and there is a wrong answer. And guys, we're not there. What's wrong with us? We're doing it wrong. Are we just not yelling enough?
I think we're not yelling enough because in sports you have to scream at each other because of reasons.
Yeah.
If you guys want me to scream at you, I'm going to have to go outside because my kids are sleeping.
Yeah, I know. Will there ever be people at live sporting events again? If so, what would that look like?
I think the answer has to be yes because of money. I think eventually they're going to run out of patience with it because they're going to lose too much revenue over not having people there. But I think it's going to take a while, probably longer than people want to admit. Like it might be 2 years before we see crowds back in stands again.
Like packed stadiums.
Yeah. Or even I think people are going to be reticent to go anywhere where there's a crowd still. You're going to get some people who don't
like
care.
That's the other thing. Is it from the leagues, or is it from the just people's mindset that I don't want to go? I don't know.
How do you guys think that's going to change? That's going to change the dynamics of whatever sporting event going forward over the next, like, say it's the next year, or even 2 years. I mean, do you put an asterisk around this? I mean, or on these seasons? I mean, what happens to home field advantage? What happens, to crowd noise and the impact that makes, and those types of things? I mean, do you see that having a big impact on sporting events or big games? Or
I think 100% it does, depending on the sport. I think in football, if football comes back in the fall and they don't have fans in the stands or limited fans in the stands, it could definitely affect the game. I think football is going to be fine in terms of revenue. They're obviously going to see a dip, but they have such a good TV deal. They have such a good streaming deal. They have so many deals in place to where I think they can still recover financially from not having people in the stands. But it's like you said, you think about the big sporting arenas in the NFL, that noise is a factor. Kansas City, Seattle, Cardinal Stadium. These are stadiums that get really loud for the opposing team. That really is difficult on the opposing team. College football is the same way. When you go to the Big House in Michigan or Ohio State or some of these other schools, that just the crowd, when we talk about rivalries, like the crowd gets into it, that affects the stadium. And so I think it's going to change the dynamic of it. But you talked about, like, there's like NASCAR, for example. They interviewed a few NASCAR drivers and they can't even hear the stands anyways. They when they're racing, they can't even hear that there's stands. I'm sure that winner's lane is a little bit different, but the fan interaction with that isn't as potent as college basketball, for example, when they're literally almost on the court every single game. When you go to McHale or Duke or Kansas, like those big blue bloods, their fans are there. You can feel the energy. I think it's going to really affect the way, without having fans, is going to affect the sport.
I like the question about, do you put an asterisk around any team that wins a title in what will be a truncated season? I don't know that I do. I think you probably
Really?
look at this really differently, but take the NBA, for example. I guess you're looking at a time when we've got some of the greatest players of all time. If you're able to go through all of this time off as a team and not get complacent and not settle into something and still come out and then beat these mega teams, I think that proves that you're still, worthy of getting that title of champion. I think that means you're a good basketball team, just as good as you would have been in any other year. So in my mind, I don't put an asterisk around this. I think it's an interesting question, though, because I wouldn't begrudge someone for holding that opinion, but I personally don't think I would.
Can I throw some? I like the asterisk question too, because that's something I've thought a lot about. Number one, I don't care if there's an asterisk or not. I just want sports back. Like, that's priority number one in my book. Like, I just want sports to come back. But I think that it's okay to put an asterisk next to these sports that stop midseason, basketball and hockey specifically. But it's a good asterisk, not a good one, because we had to close because of a global pandemic. But it's not like in the asterisk next to Barry Bonds for the home run king, when he allegedly cheated to get the home run king champion, or Jose Canseco, or any of those guys that have cheated. This is an asterisk because, hey, we had to pause the season, and there were teams that were eliminated prematurely. Right, that from the playoffs, they might not have been mathematically eliminated. They might not have made the playoffs. Like, the chances of them making it were really slim, but they technically weren't mathematically eliminated. So we never gave them the chance to make it, which would have added another hitch in the giddy up. Plus, hockey was still supposed to play. The Coyotes, for example, were supposed to play 11 more regular season games before they even started the playoffs. So you can't wear into that factor of the game playing another month or half a month before you even start the playoffs. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body as well. I think it's going to be tricky in both basketball and hockey because they've taken so much time off, like you said, to try and start back up. The first few games are going to be a little rough. It's going to be like spring training all over again. So I think there's going to be an asterisk next to it, but I think it's going to be an okay asterisk.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that makes sense. There's not anything you could really do about this season for a number of sports, right? I mean, it just is what it is. You're going to have shortened seasons. You're going to have seasons starting late. You sort of have to feel for the athletes that are trying to play through this. You know what I mean? Because their longevity and their contracts are based on the statistics that they're able to put out, right? And if you have a season like this, how does that factor in? And how are people going to be looking at that moving forward? And how is that going to impact these athletes, and whatever legacy they may be trying to put down right now, 5 years from now, could you make the argument that they were one of the greatest players of all time, except for they had that dead season, right?
Right. Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, there's a lot of players that you're talking about. Let's talk about the LeBron James versus Michael Jordan argument, if you will, for lack of a better season.
We might as well talk about politics and religion on the show. We're getting real divisive now.
I wasn't going to go into the debate of MJ versus LeBron, but like even when you're having that kind of discussion, like you've got to be able to put, but LeBron James's 2019-2020 season was cut short because of a global pandemic. Regardless of all the statistics and all the arguments and all that other stuff that you could talk about, that's always, I think, going to be something in the history books that, but he didn't get to finish.
Yeah. We'll have that debate over and over again for decades to come.
Yeah, it's not going to stop. I mean,
the converse of that might also be true, is that some guy who wasn't primed to land some big contract next year just blows it away for half a season and someone wildly overpays for him next year.
Oh,
probably Bill O'Brien at Houston, if I had to guess.
Probably with the moves he's been making, you're probably correct. So that's an interesting point because we've seen that with the Pac-12 or the NCAA tournament or Pac-12 tournament too with basketball. You see some guys that go out and blow out the water in the tournament, and now all of a sudden they're a top 10 pick, and you're like, where in the world did that come from? But they had a good 4-game stretch where they put up 30 points a game from somewhere, and now they're playing in the league.
Who's the first player you think of when you make that analogy?
Derek Williams.
Who was I was going to say
close.
too? Derek Williams.
Derek Williams from Arizona, not even close. I mean,
maybe Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer, yeah, but Jimmer had a good season too. I mean, he was a good basketball player. His NBA career didn't take off like it maybe could have or should have. Derek Williams was mediocre in the season, right? He came in as a 3-star recruit, so you didn't have high expectations of a DeAndre Ayton or some of these players that come in as a 5-star, and he comes in and he plays well, and then he comes in and almost single-handedly beat Duke that year, and everybody's like, oh, we got to draft him as the 3rd overall draft pick. Was he worthy of that high of draft? Probably not, but again, the tournament depicted that. And so is that what this is going to be when they return? If they return, I mean, do you see that happening? Like somebody getting a big contract?
I almost guarantee it. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think both of those extremes are true, is that someone will be judged more harshly for not being good in a shortened season, and someone will be given a contract they're not worthy of because they played over their heads in a shortened season. It's just going to be all over the map.
I think whoever is able to come up with the first of those sports, whoever is able to put a team out first is going to make the most in terms of revenue and fan base recruitment, because people just want to watch sports. They're staying up till 3 a.m. to watch Korean baseball. Nobody in America, probably very few in America, were watching Korean baseball before COVID hit.
Well, that's why the Capital One's The Match, had the #1 viewing broke records for golf viewing, right? It wasn't that they had a particularly great product to put out there. It was fun to watch, but it was because people are starving for live sports.
How have we not talked about this yet, Mo? We need to talk about the match. Impressions from the match from a guy who understands Tom Brady's mind, maybe a little more than Tom Brady understands Tom Brady's mind. What do you make of this?
I think they did a great job of putting together something that would sort of grab national attention, and especially for sports fans, right? I mean, you can even be a casual NFL watcher and still recognize the rivalry between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, and the dynamics that happen there. And you could just only know a little bit about golf and recognize that, there's some tension between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, so you have some two pretty high profile rivalries going on there from two different sports.
To throw another thing, like even if you're not a sports fan, you know who Tom Brady, Peyton Manning are, who Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson are. Like you recognize the name,
If you've ever ordered a pizza from Papa John's, you know who Peyton Manning is.
True.
Yeah, but I mean, so these are all these high profile names. I mean, who doesn't know who Tiger Woods is, right? And so to have that be the only thing in sports happening was huge, and the fans flocked to it. And one of the things I sort of liked about that match, and then the drive for relief match they had the week or two before, was that it sort of wasn't overproduced, right? And you got to see every shot, and you got to see some of the best players in the world, hit some bad shots and miss some putts, and and hit bunkers and just have fun, and it was a really fun sporting event to watch. It wasn't high stakes, it wasn't high profile, but it was sort of fun to watch. It was also sort of fun to watch Brady being the worst player on the field at that time, going back to the whole, teaching your kids who to root for and that kind of stuff. So my kids sort of recognized that there was, that maybe we shouldn't be rooting for Tom Brady. And so then they started rooting for Peyton Manning. And I was like, whoa, no, you can't, don't do that.
There's no circumstance where that's okay.
Whoa.
Whoa. It's okay. Tom Brady's not so bad, guys.
Back the train up. Have daughters, Phil, and you've got a daughter and a son. So how is it different? Is it different?
It's different. I mean, it's different. And I don't know if it's a boy-girl thing, it's a daughter-son thing, or if it's just the difference of personalities between kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my daughter is very studious. She's very about organized, about following the rules. And very into school and that type of stuff. My son hasn't found a rule yet that applies to him unless he wants it to. My daughter is very reserved, whereas my son is like the extrovert's extrovert.
Right.
He has never met a person who's not his friend. Right. He will talk to anybody anytime. And he's very, theatrical, right? I mean, he's very, and so sometimes it's like living with a young Jim Carrey in my house.
Uh-oh.
With the noises he makes and the facial expressions and the crazy stuff that he does, and so, yeah, I mean, it's a whole different world. And, it's funny. I mean, you guys talk about how you approach your daughters in certain situations and that kind of stuff. And I have to approach my daughter and deal with situations much differently than I approach my son about stuff. It's just the way their personalities are and what connects with them and that kind of stuff. But I can tell you get into some really different stories with the kids too. Like you guys aren't there yet. You're getting there.
Right.
You're not there at the whole potty training stage yet.
Oh no.
there are some stories about potty training, and I'm not going to tell the ones about my daughter, but I will tell one about my son.
Oh no.
So, when you're potty training, especially a little boy, like you have to, it's like you have to, when they have to go, you just have to go. They take their pants off and they just go, right? And so the whole idea of potty training is sort of setting social boundaries, and so we're potty training my son, and we realized that he would have accidents if we were in the backyard and we made him go into the house, right? And it wasn't working. So we decided that, okay, we're going to help my son by just saying that, look, if you have to go potty, pee in the rocks, right? Just go over, pee in the gravel, right? I mean, it's fine. It's our backyard. Nobody else is here. It's fine, but do that.
I mean, you're a guy, you can pee outside. No big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of teaching him that, draw your name in the rocks and, point at the spot on the wall and anyway.
Those are the important life lessons, really, when you think about it.
Right. That's what a father teaches a son. Right. And so, so I walk in to go pick him up from daycare or preschool one day. And I knew I was in trouble, because I don't normally pick him up from preschool. My wife usually picked him up, but I went in for whatever reason this day, and the teacher goes, "Oh, Mr. Bashaw, I'm glad you're here." And I'm like, "Oh no." You'd never want things to start out that way. And she says, "Yeah, I need to talk to you about your son." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she says, "Do you happen to let him pee in the rocks at home?" And I said, yeah, we're potty training and we're working on it, you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. And she said, yeah, I was curious about that because at playtime, he was over in the playground and he was peeing through the wrought iron fence that faces the parking lot that they happen to share with a dental office. And he was peeing in the rocks the way only a 3-year-old does, right? He had his shirt up under his armpits and his pants down around his ankles.
Such a classic look.
It was a classic look, yes. And when the teacher saw this, immediately the reaction is like, "Charlie, what are you doing?" And apparently he turned around, never missed a beat, and said, "Peeing in the rocks." So that was the day that we had to sit down and really talk to our son about, okay, there are things you can do at home and there are things that you can't do in public. You know what I mean? It's just, or there are things you can do at home that you can't do in public around other people.
Right? Oh man, I'm peeing in the rocks.
He was doing what he was trained to do. Good on him.
Good on him. Charlie gets the thumbs up from the Brody Mo in-law show.
I guarantee somebody getting a root canal that day had a very interesting view.
They're like, was I under when that, or did I see a kid peeing through wrought iron fences? I don't know what happened.
Are they using in this clinic? Well, guys, I think we've covered just about everything. Talked a lot about NFL football, talked about Tom Brady to the Patriots, talked about golf, talked about some daughters, talked about some sons even on the show for a change of pace, which was great.
That's true.
Joel, thank you so much for being on the show. That was awesome of you. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of it. Since you're the guest host, we're going to put you on the spot. We're going to make you come up with the number for the week that Brody's going to auction to. What do you got?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And I think in honor of Tom Brady's run with the New England Patriots, let's count it down to 20. That's the number of seasons he played with us.
There you go. All right, here we go. And 5 here, 10, 10, now 15, and $15 here, 15 here, now 20, and $20 here, 25 here, 25 and a half here, 25. Sold it. 20 seasons. Tom Brady with the Patriots.
Everybody, thanks again for listening to the Brody and Mo In-Law Show with guest host Phil. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at inlawshow@gmail.com, or our Twitter handle is @inlawshow. Otherwise, we'll see you all next week.
Bye, guys.